Hello, Culture Matters podcast. So excited to introduce you to our guests. Before I do that, here's a quote I picked just for this episode. Rich people acquire assets. The poor and middle class acquire liabilities that they think are assets. Robert Kiyosaki. My dear guests, Cory Parker and Christine Beckwith, the C2 powerhouse couple. The real estate connoisseurs, the coaches, the mentors to many. If you don't know them, check out some of our previous episodes on the Culture Matters podcast. We're back to talk about more properties. Last time I had you guys on, you had just started investing in real estate and had a property that was going well. We'll unpack. And now, even the last time I was here, there wasn't another. Now there's another. It's like every time I come back, you come back on the show, maybe there'll be another.
Possibly.
So, what is the scoop?
You want to go or?
No, you go.
So, I know on the last podcast, we talked about, the one investment property we owned at the time and growing that. And in the short time since that last conversation, we've since purchased another one, as you mentioned. We have a much better understanding of what we're looking for. Whereas I think we're both, thought about it, but I think now we understand where we're living, the market in which we're living, the price that, so much more detail as we're getting into this. We're getting better and better at it.
What does it take to learn through experience as it relates to investing into real estate? What types of attributes, character attributes? Like what type of person does the listener need to be to actually successfully do this, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that people that are going to invest in real estate need to do their homework. They have to start by looking at the geographical area that they want to own homes in. There's two types of real estate investment. We were talking a little bit about this last night, but you're either looking to have short-term gains or long-term gains or both. So there's three types. We've talked about this in past episodes, so I won't go down this hole too far, but if you're going to be maintaining a home for rental, even if you're going to have longer term rents, like tenants in like a 3-family, opposed to like, maybe Airbnb homes, you probably need to have a local geographical connection to the investment property. So that's number one. Once you know where that geographical area is, you should spend a fair amount of time looking at the real estate sites, understanding the values of properties for a long time. Like we spent years, in fact, examining this particular area. We got put on a automatic email list that every property that in this geographical area would be listed, we would get notified. And so for literally 36 months leading up to our first purchase, we were watching properties come on and sell. We were seeing how fast they sold, which ones retained their values, which ones had prices go up. And we had examined a sweet spot. We had bought Airbnb books. We had done online training. And this is kind of funny because you would think me, 32 years in the field and him 20 something, that there's no question that we probably didn't need to do extra levels of examination or preparation, but we really felt like there was some holes and things we knew. So we got ourselves there. And then the rest is really up to understanding that you're going to have a 20% down payment if you own a home, 20% down deposit up front if you own your own home. And so you got to have a fair amount of savings to start your first one. And then from there, it's all marketing, accounting, obviously home decorating, preparation, etc.
Why do you think people fail at this?
Let me say this quote right without, I didn't think about this in advance. Piss poor planning results in piss poor performance. Planning, whether it's financial planning to do it in the right location, in the right market, planning for income outside of the investment, if you're just starting, so make a plan. And I know there's so many different scenarios to plan for, but make that plan, calculate the risk. There is always a risk, that old saying, plan for the worst and hope for the best. I think we complement each other with that. Personally, it's great having a partner that I can bounce my concerns off of, and having somebody explain to me whether they agree or disagree why. And so, have somebody that is willing to talk with you through it. If you're going to do this on your own, not saying find a partner, but maybe find a mentor.
Thanks, babe.
Has this helped you guys grow?
Yeah.
Like, there's couples listening to this that are thinking, yeah,
We'll kill each other.
yeah, or like, is it gonna spice things up?
Oh,
I think for us,
it's funny.
we both appreciate the hard work that we put into our professional, personal lives. And sometimes that hard work results in lots of hours. Doing this together forces us to be together at certain times, whether it's, I wouldn't say call it a meeting, but having conversations about properties, we have to talk. When it's just her business versus my business, then
Good talk. Love you so much.
yes. So, but when it's her business, she's talking to her employees. When it's my business, I'm talking to my clients, my employees, and so forth. With this, we're talking to each other. So I believe it's certainly brought us closer.
What have you learned about each other?
That I need to push off the diving board into the deep
Yeah,
end.
we had an intersection. This is funny because the whole time that we've been talking, like, we had an intersection that obviously was, when we were thinking of buying the second property, one property is one thing. And it took off. The first property took off. We had rentals going. It seemed really like a no-brainer. It's in an awesome location. The second property, we ended up in a spot where it was a deeper amount of money down. The mortgage was going to end up higher. And they were going to end up, we were going to end up in a spot with a little more risk. And he wasn't convinced necessarily in that it was the greatest idea. And I laugh because we really had to spend time convincing one another. I will say this, I am the person that takes action faster. And so I really had to not get aggravated with them. I watch a lot of HGTV couples and I'm like, I'm that bitch that doesn't want to be patient with him because he doesn't want to do this. And I was really mad when he didn't want to do the second property. And I told myself, don't get mad. I thought when we went and looked at this great property that it was going to get sold out from underneath us. And I literally had this talk in my head. This is a God honest true story. And I've never done this with him because he always gets my impatience. But I said, this is a partnership. This is a business. This is different than us debating about something at home. He isn't comfortable. He's my business partner. I need to understand where his discomfort comes from. And I need to stand down. And if I lose this is not life or death. This house purchase is not life or death. Our relationship is more important. His feelings are more important. And I thought, holy crap, I'm growing. I'm a good person.
Beautiful.
Right.
What a beautiful
I
thing.
know. And I did stand down and I said, fine. And I let go. And it was kind of liberating because it was different for me to do that. Because I usually just pull through. I've been my own business owner, kind of sort of in charge of my own decisions. So, however, I am persistent. And after a few weeks of letting him simmer, I went back to him and I said, can I present you with a set of facts that I have gathered about this investment that will help us look together at the potential risk? And I think we should look at it as best case scenario, base case, and worse, which is what you do in business. And he sat back hard, kind of in his chair. We were in our master bedroom where his office is actually. And he said, okay, let's go. And so I sat down, and between two calculators and a half-hour conversation, we had looked at the worst case scenarios. And I said, look, our biggest risk is us. And I would bet on us any day because you're hardworking and I'm hardworking and we're not going to fail here, here, or here. So if you eliminate the fact that we control how it's serviced and how it's marketed and our network and our ability to do good accounting and the way we're going to set this home up, the risk comes down to this. Are you willing to live with that risk? And so that's what we did. And he said, okay, let's do it. And then
Why do
and
you
move forward.
think you did? Or I guess before we go into why you think you did, what was it like having that conversation?
I approached it as a business conversation and left the emotion out of it. You know, obviously we're in a personal relationship, so there's emotions. There could be things, you know, that could influence the way we're talking that's not related to the topic. Meaning, hey, what you did yesterday is really bothering me still, so let me pull it into this conversation. None of that happened. You know, we both really, you know, the conversation was a professional one between two people that have a personal relationship. That was hugely helpful to understand the true details of what we were doing and not just trying to win an argument, you know, and it wasn't an argument, it was an understanding. So I think that was hugely helpful, is for both of us, is approaching it as a business meeting and not just a conversation between two, you know, boyfriend and girlfriend.
If there's couples listening to this that are pursuing a business together, like, and they're saying, wow, you know, I want to be able to do that. How the hell?
You have to look at yourself and you have to look at your partner and segment how you look at them. You know, if you have children and you're going over their school schedule and sports schedule, well, you got to work together as husband and wife and father and mother of two, you know, children in that scenario. When you're talking about business, it's not about the kids. It's not about anything else. You have to be able to separate it personally, and you have to look at that other person and say, all right, you know, she's my girlfriend during the day, but now she's my business partner. And some things you might have to turn off to have the business conversation.
Yeah, we had bigger arguments about like where the lamp was going in these places. I mean, we had like knockdown, drag out fights about colors of towels and things like that, because we're both very stubborn, which is also on its head great for businesses because we will work our butts off. He is probably the hardest worker I know outside of myself. And I say that like he runs circles around me. Like I got to give it to him because like he obviously serves an extreme role in all of it. It's exciting to me. We have had the opportunity to start our relationship from a business level, and we worked with each other for several years as business people. And so, you know, the development of our personal relationship came second. It is harder 16 years down the road to unintertwine, whatever the proper way to describe that is. But I can't think of anyone I'd rather, you know, obviously be going into business with, and we both benefit. It benefits our household, our lives. It's kind of cool to have a brand with him because, you know, we've been Cory and Christine obviously as a couple, but to have C2 Powerhouse be our brand, I love it. And I don't even think we've begun to understand where it's going to go because I have in my mind these images of obviously multiple properties. And, you know, I imagine in 10 years, we're going to have a lot of properties. And I believe that the brand will be synonymous with local renters and people coming to this area. And they will know our homes. They will know our homes and it'll be synonymous with good service and great hospitality. And we're working to be in the community. He's going to real estate meetings. You know, we are out there going to, you know, different things. We were just at a banking event the other night. And so we're trying to make a name for ourselves, you know, in this area.
And this is the short-term rental model primarily.
Right.
What makes that successful, would you say? What like don'ts? Like, you know, there's do's and don'ts. A lot of people are doing it now.
I think
We're
the
trying.
biggest thing for us and where we're located is that location. We're in what we call the Lakes region, which is a tourist destination. So you have a lot of people coming in and out, wanting to, you know, spend time here. if we lived in a different location, would the 12-month lease model longer term work? Maybe. So I think we knew we wanted to invest, and just given the location, we knew short term was going to be much greater return than a long-term lease would be.
Do you think it's good to look 10, 15, 20, 30 years out when it comes to real estate investing this way, or general?
I don't, like, we have a 10-year plan, us personally, because I'm old. There's a 12-year difference in our age, and I'm 53, and quite frankly, we want to slow down. The next decade for us will be passive income growth, which is a slowing down of physical labor. And that's not to shock his employer or my clients, because we intend to work for many, many years still from now. But there is an exit plan. And I do think that end plan gives us really quality life in years that we're going to want that.
Do you think people wait too long, or they don't? So you said 10 years, I guess, you think people kick the can down the road without realizing?
Oh, yeah. And I didn't think I would ever be able to get here 10 years ago, when we went through a previous market decline and lost half our wealth or most of our wealth because of, the 07, 08, era, 15 years ago, whatever you want to call it now. And that happened to me multiple times over my 32-year career. And for also personal reasons, through divorce and financial division, there's been a resetting and a rebuilding. So I'm going to say this: everybody, incomes in ebb and flow. If you can save to reinvest, I will say this: there is no better place than real estate to put your money. If you're going to put money in savings, you're going to get whatever you're going to get back in 10 years. If you give me $100,000 and you put it in a savings and loan bank, a credit union, even in the S&P 500 on Wall Street, you're taking some level of risk. And if you're going conservative, where you're taking no risk, you're going to get no
bonds.
you're going to get low to no return. And I think if you're trying to accelerate your wealth, at the lowest end of the scale for the last 40 years, annualized real estate ascension in value has been 3%. And it's only been that low like 5 out of 40 years. Okay. The average actual ascension of value in homes has been somewhere between 8 and 12%. The high end was 18 to 20% in the heyday. And so if we think that the last 40 years are going to, there's a high demand, so prices being pushed up right now, that demand isn't changing. The builder's market isn't changing. The inventory situation isn't changing. Our population is increasing. And those are a lot of factors or drivers to value. And so if you look at the next decade, we truly believe that the money that we're investing right now will land somewhere between 5 to 8% on the modest side, and more like 8 to 15% on the high side. So the middle of that is around 7 to 8%. There is no money market. There is no savings. There is no place that we're going to put $100,000 and we're going to get back, what we possibly can. And of course, we're not talking about $100,000. We're talking about a $2.4 million real estate portfolio between 3 homes right now. And so now we're hoping to have somewhere between an $8 and $10 million real estate portfolio. So you can do a 7% on that and kind of come up with where you end up. And if it costs you nothing, if these properties pay for themselves through the manufacturing of our sweat equity, our accounting, our marketing, if there's some short-term income, great. But if we can turn around and we can take that portfolio and have that then give us a $700,000 return on the low side, okay? Where am I putting that money today that I could make that kind of interest? There's really nowhere. So that's the math.
You think too that it takes so much work to get to be well off.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking that like so many people struggle.
Sure.
Right. I don't know. It's just something I thought, it just takes so much work.
Yeah.
You think like if we don't start talking about these things now, we don't start thinking about these things now,
Right.
10, 15 years out, it just doesn't happen.
Right.
exactly.
And like, for so many people, and people that even made money in their life or make money today. Like, what are your thoughts on that? I don't know if anything comes to mind.
I mean, you're talking about investing in general, more specifically investing in real estate, they always say the best time to buy a house was last year. The next best time is right now. So
you guys are doing that.
And we took that and I practice what I preach, to buy that second house, kind of digressing back to that. You've probably heard the term with today's loan interest rates, marry the home, but date the rate. Buy the house now, start building equity, and you'll be able to refinance when the rates go down. So if I'm telling that to people that are looking to buy houses now, why wouldn't I think the same way? So that was one thing that helped me purchase that property.
Do you mean that you didn't want to be a hypocrite?
I mean, I started, yes, but I didn't realize at the time because I started to do emotional thinking.
Okay.
And when I got to practical thinking, then I realized, wait a second, this is the payment's here and it's only going to come down. It's not going back up. But I could avoid that payment. So I'm going to pay a monthly payment with a higher rate.
Like, you don't know what the future is going to bring, but you know the future is going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's
never thought of it till right now. We did it.
Well done.
And you also understand.
Can I write that down?
Yeah, that's a good one. But like to your point with that is you don't know, you may not know what the future holds, but you have some pretty good indicators to understand what might.
Do you think that the value of the good, strong partnership led to this?
Yeah, definitely.
You're in the interplay, you're different people.
Definitely.
You're working towards the same things.
I can only speak for myself on that. I'll let you talk in a minute, but I know that if it were left up to me and my own decision, I wouldn't have purchased it. The first one, sure. I mean, that was a no-brainer, but the second one took a little more convincing. I'm not a huge risk taker by nature. So this is one of the riskier things I've ever done.
It's kind of like
exciting.
also when we made a commitment to buy this house, I really felt, this is what I said to him behind closed doors during that meeting. I said, if I have to convince you against your will to do this, we will spend the rest of our lives in every troubled spot if this property isn't great, with you saying, I told you I didn't want to do this. So there absolutely has to be a complete agreement that we're doing this for the good or the bad. And it can't be you convinced me to do this because there's risk and I can't make that risk go away. So we need to look at this risk together and say, we're going to take this risk together and we need to understand it. And so there had to be an agreement psychologically of what our roles were in this as a business partnership, because we didn't want it to be a point of contention later, because I don't want to be held responsible if this has issues. I really don't think it will. It hasn't. In fact, I said to him, my job is marketing and accounting and his job is property management. That's the division of our sweat equity roles in the company, besides being owners. And obviously there's a lot to do with building LLCs and accounting. And so I've just employed a CFO for this and, gotten tax accounting advising, which cost us money. And, these are the decisions we're making so that we're not doing things blindly. And we're not doing things. We have a property management on staff. We've now trained 3 cleaning crews, even though sometimes we choose to clean it ourselves. I mean, that's the God honest truth. And so I decided to take pictures of another unit that was decorated before we closed. This is going to make everybody crazy that's listening to this. I had a clear title, I had clear appraisal. And I said, this bell curve of when people book rentals is in the spring. We're closing right now in the spring, but we're losing really big traction on getting summer rentals. And we're going to have this house and we're going to end up starting from a place where we're putting out, mortgages. And I had said to him, if we look at the worst cases, we got to write the first 6 mortgage checks before we get rental income in. That's the worst case scenario. But what if we never had to write it? What if the best case scenario is we never had to write the first check? And I said, I am going to put this up on Airbnb before we close. And he's like, that's crazy. I told our attorney that too. And I said, is it legal or illegal? He goes, it's totally legal, but if it falls apart, you're going to be canceling, which is going to kill you on Airbnb, because once you start canceling, you hurt your reputation. I didn't even know then actually how big of a risk that was, because I now know, because we've had to cancel one reservation, and Airbnb doesn't like that, come to find out, at all. That being said, we put it up, and in 7 days we had 9 weeks of rentals and
Wow.
almost $20,000 in the first 4 mortgage payments.
Wow.
And those people have been coming in and out all summer. And so it was a hedging against the likeliness. It's a risk, right? It's a risk taking. It's a risk I told them I was going to take for my side of the business. And this is where, all people have to decide in business and life, what am I willing to risk for reward? And most people will not get to the multi-million, multi-billion dollar places in their life, because the fear of those losses on the other side of that reward, which is truly the bet, it isn't equal parts. This is where people do the over analyzing and they get the analysis paralysis. They consider loss and reward equal parts. They're not. In everything you do, there is an actual ability to assume how much risk there is and how much possible loss there is. And you can look at those things in finite ways and understand this will be the pain of that, and this will be the pleasure of this. And it usually is like, it's 60% likely that this is going to end up positive. And are we willing to take the 40% risk? We will probably get burned at some point in this. I need to say that. I've never said that in front of him. But if we buy 5 or 6 properties, there's going to be one that's going to be a dud. The statistics just say that's going to happen. There's going to be one that's going to be a dud. We're going to do everything we can to do our research and try to avoid that. And we're going to look at the totality of our portfolio so that we're not looking at it in individual homes. But when we relinquish it at the end of 10 years, if 4 houses kill it and 2 lose money and our net is a gain, we did it. We did it, right? And especially if it made us money along. And so that is where we're at. And that's where we think of.
In closing, what do you want the audience to take from this conversation and the lessons? And
Like I think the biggest thing I've already said, on this topic specifically, I couldn't do what she does for the business while I'm doing what I do for the business, and vice versa. I understand what her talents are. I think she understands mine, and we stay out of each other's way to a degree, but we have overlap as well. And understanding that, hey, if your department, you need some help, I can help you. If I need some help, she helps me. But partnering up with somebody that will hold you accountable. And like I said, whether it's not a business partner, but maybe it's a mentor or some coach that will help you, hold you accountable, because there's a lot that you have to do. And doing it all on your own, that's a big job.
Yeah.